Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council, I should say, held an emergency meeting to address the spiraling conflict. Its Secretary General António Guterres believes time is running out for peace as both Israel and Iran continue to exchange more retaliatory threats. However, pressure appears to have shifted towards the UN after Israel said it's barring Guterres from entering the country for not taking a stronger stance against Iran. Jason Gaidola joins us live with more on the developments here. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Nicole. Guterres did condemn Iran's attack yesterday. However, Israel believes he hasn't done enough to convince them, and some are even calling for him to step down from the UN.
Israel has no intention to pursue peace or a ceasefire.
Inside the United Nations Security Council chambers, Iran's UN ambassador says yesterday's barrage of missiles on Israel was necessary and meant to restore balance. The Security Council called for an emergency meeting today in an attempt to de-escalate a brewing conflict between Iran and Israel.
The Iranian regime will be held responsible for its actions, and we strongly warn against Iran or its proxies taking actions against the United States or for their actions against Israel.
By Israel's side, the U.S. is demanding the Council to impose serious sanctions on Iran's armed forces.
I again strongly condemn yesterday's massive missile attack by Iran on Israel. This deadly cycle of tit-for-tat violence must stop. Time is running out, and I thank you.
We are very disappointed from the Secretary General's approach. Let's look at the last year. After October 7th, the Secretary General put a very poor statement where he said that there is no vacuum. After that, the UN never passed a resolution under his leadership condemning Hamas and the atrocities.
Meanwhile, Israel says it will bar António Guterres from entering the country, believing the UN leader has shown very little support.
We don't find that step to be productive in any way.
Despite being allies, the U.S. didn't agree with the move.
And the UN, when it's acting at its best, can play an important role for security and stability. So we think it's important that Israel be able to engage with the UN. One of the things we've always said that Israel needs to be cognizant of throughout this conflict is its standing in the world.
With no sign of the conflict ending anytime soon, some question whether the UN could intervene.
Intermediary roles and good offices is sometimes the phrase people use, can be made, but they're only as good as the willingness of the parties at the other end to say, yeah, let's have a discussion, even behind the scenes. Like, that's the other offer that I'm sure is on the table, is like, do whatever you want publicly, but let's talk behind the scenes. And when parties to a conflict aren't even doing that, you're in serious situation.
On Monday, one ally of the Islamic Republic turned the pressure back on the UN.
Barış için birlik kararında olduğu gibi kuvvet kullanma tavsiyesi.
After Turkey's president called for use of force actions against Israel.
A UN spokesperson responded to Israel's barring of Guterres, describing it as another Israeli political attack on UN staff. Nicole.